Welcome to the DeFi Standard, and I'm Mickey B. Fresh.
And I'm Lars, and we're back here with the second of a series of videos on new to DeFi. And Mickey, I really enjoyed that last one where for me at least, I got to go back in my awareness to that time before I ever entered into cryptocurrency and bought my first XRP and really started to get involved with this. And it was fun to go back because I've been so involved in it now. It was like, oh yeah, I remember that time. And I'm thinking like some of the first terms that showed up, in my awareness. Of course, Bitcoin, but blockchain, cryptocurrency, tokens. And I'm thinking for people that are just sort of like, is this an area I want to move into? Let's talk a little bit about those things. Why don't you start us off with like, what's a blockchain?
Sure. So the blockchain is where the cryptocurrency actually lives. So the token itself operates and runs on this blockchain, which is the underlying protocol of thousands of nodes. And the transactions are submitted to blocks. Now, these blocks form a history of all the transactions that are sent through the network. And now they're recorded in a history that's continuous. So it's immutable and it can't be changed. And that's one of the most powerful things about blockchain is that it's an immutable ledger for the most part, and it is transparent. So those transactions that go through are just on a continuous basis. And the cryptography is the security aspect of how the consensus mechanisms work. So that's very different from traditional markets where it's just entries into a ledger. With blockchain, it's triple entry accounting. So there's besides the two parties, there's the ledger. It's always recording the transactions. And that's one thing that makes this technology so revolutionary, and there's no central intermediary there. So it's just these assets live on the blockchains. So they're basically hosted nodes in the cloud. They could be run by anybody. And the history is all the same on all the different nodes that are on the blockchain.
So it gives you this accountability that's there. And I mean, it's another term, but we got to get these terms
Mm-hmm.
out there that the Bitcoin blockchain, it was the very first one. There's been
Mm-hmm.
many others since. They do different things,
Mm-hmm.
but it was solving this double spend
Yes.
problem.
Mm-hmm.
And that's that, as you said, it's a revolutionary change. So I think it helps us as we get into this field, like there's really something to this. So maybe you could talk about that, these blocks and the double spend and how it was solved.
Yes. So Satoshi Nakamoto came up with the proof of work protocol, which uses mining and solves the double spend problem. So this allows for transactions to be processed without a central intermediary. And this is something that in the history has never been able to be done. It's been double entry accounting for since the Medici era back in the 1400s. And now we have this ability to send transactions without any intermediary and just do peer to peer.
So this, I'm reminded of like a story of a small business or a church where, let's say, the church treasurer can go in and just take money out, and so there's these people that are given authority, but then they could misuse it. They could cheat, and actually, blockchain prevents cheating, and it's done not with one person overlooking it who could cheat, but it's this amazing decentralization through all these nodes that allows this to function in a way that's more reliable. And that's amazing, right? People think,
Mm-hmm.
oh, it's just this crazy thing and it
Mm-hmm.
can't really be anything, but actually to function in a way that's more reliable, more trustworthy than anything we've had before.
Absolutely. It's immutable. So the data can't be changed on it. And it runs 24/7, 365, because the nodes are operating all over the world. So Bitcoin blockchain, the XRP ledger, they have never gone down. They have run continuously since their inception at this time, and they're also transparent. So any transaction that has been processed, there's always a visibility into that transaction. It's not attached to an identity, but that's something in traditional markets, you don't have that type of transparency. So that's another thing that makes this revolutionary.
So if you're sitting outside of this and you're not in it and you're thinking, oh, well, I just got to get in it because it's going up so much in value, like it's really useful to understand that actually this is a more secure way of doing transactions than anything we had before. There's really something to all of this technology.
Well, this is the trust machine. So there's no longer having to trust a bank or trusting another entity. It allows for trustless transactions. So that's something in the world these days with all the corruption and things that have occurred with the financial crisis and counterparty risk. With a blockchain, you can make a transaction that's trusted because you're trusting just the protocol and the software that is run by the nodes on the network. So it really comes down to trust. We have solved the trust problem along with the double spend. And now these blockchains are foundational infrastructure. So they're just the new layer at the bottom. And it's only recently that we're able to see now applications being built on top of them because of this foundational infrastructure, that you don't have to trust anyone. You trust the protocol, and it's all distributed, the nodes all around the world.
You know, back at the beginning of this conversation, you mentioned the word Bitcoin mining. And I remember the first time I heard that, it was like, because I'm a farmer and it's like, gosh, I'm thinking of like picks and shovels. So this idea of mining that is done, and just also as an example of how much it changes. When I first got involved, there were individual people that were doing this, and now it's kind of transformed to bigger and bigger entities, corporations and stuff, taking on this role of mining. But probably for a lot of people, have no idea what that term is. I certainly didn't.
Yeah, so miners actually are the ones who solve these cryptographic problems that validate the blocks, and those are the transactions that go through. And if they use this tremendous amount of energy to solve these mathematical equations to mine the blocks, and therefore they earn rewards in new Bitcoin that is generated. So it has turned into the world where the cheapest electricity is where the mining is taking place, and now it's become more centralized, with China being the least expensive electricity, and these mining pools together are mining. Over 50% of the miners are located in China, and they pool their computing power together. So the concept of decentralization it's become more centralized with proof of work over time. So that was just the first technology, was proof of work to solve the double spend problem. And since then, which was back in 2009, we have new types of consensus models like the XRP ledger, and then also, which is Federated Byzantine Agreement. And then we have proof of stake, where you actually put up the validators, put up value to earn rewards for validating the blocks. So it is evolving over time, and the energy consumption of proof of work is not sustainable. And that's something we're starting to see now, with the amount of energy Bitcoin blockchain uses is equal to 1% of global energy consumption. And that is a major problem, and it's not sustainable in the long term.
That was actually, for me, the reason that I didn't actually purchase Bitcoin when I started it. It didn't make sense to me that a piece of coding to keep track of an economy that was way, way less than $1 trillion at the time. Now it's $1 trillion. But even like, why are you going to spend a whole percentage of all of the energy usage of the world to keep track of who owns $1 trillion? And then as I got into it more and more, I realized, well, it was a brilliant, brilliant way to figure out how to do this process. And it's a sign of the evolution of blockchain and how much it's changed. Then came proof of stake, and then came the Federated Byzantine Agreement that XRP uses. And I actually think, Mickey, maybe that would be a good topic for us in the next video, just to kind of move into that a lot. You don't have to, this stuff that Mickey is sharing now, you don't have to like understand it all the way down to the level of the code. But I feel like it's really useful to have a picture of this so I can compare and contrast things. And ultimately, for me, I wanted to have a sense of confidence that when I participated in this, it was something meaningful and useful, and it felt like it had a solid future. And I ended up finding that for me, it was in XRP, and then it became an airdrop into the Flare network and FlareFinance and all that. And I know that's what you're mostly helping educate people with, Mickey. But this is really good to go back, and it just sort of helps what's the big picture of this whole thing? So what do you
Yes.
think about for our next video?
Next video, I think we will go into the different consensus models with like how the XRP ledger, and we could touch on how smart contracts were the next evolution after Bitcoin. But one other thing I just did want to touch on while we're talking about this was that the actual protocol, like the Bitcoin protocol, is run by all the nodes. And that's what allows the supply of Bitcoin to be a specific amount of 21 million Bitcoin. That's all that could ever be created, because that is what is built into the code. So that's something very different from traditional markets, and it gives the users and the market certainty on the supply. Where right now, in the traditional markets, fiat could just be printed at will and created, where these protocols, the rules are baked into them, into the blockchain, and they can't be changed. But there's also governance that is necessary, and we'll go into governance in another future video. But I just thought that's important to know, that the rules are baked into the protocol. So everyone agrees on the rules who uses the protocol, and they all know the rules.
Perfect. Thank you. So part of our goal here in this series is that if you're brand new to the space, get you up to speed so that when you watch Mickey's videos on his YouTube channel, Mickey Be Fresh, you're going to be like, oh, okay, I kind of get what he's talking about. You still have to listen to him 2 or 3 times like I do to kind of really grasp it. We have a live stream over there where we take questions. And let's see, then there's the DeFi Standard website where there's tons of information. If you're coming into this space, or if you've got a lot of experience with it. And then the conversation that goes on daily inside of the Patreon group on the Telegram channel. So there's lots of places where you can get more, but our purpose here is just to kind of open up this understanding, get you introduced, and start to get a feel for this cryptocurrency space.
I'm Mickey B. Fresh, and I'm out.